In the darkest nights, we find our light. Battered souls, but we won't lose sight. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, never alone. Through every trial, we carry on. Surviving together, we stand tall. United forever. Strength and courage will overcome. Surviving together, victorious. Never, never, never alone. Hand in hand, we'll face the unknown.
We see you, we hear you, and we believe you. Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Surviving Together. If you don't know that you've landed on this channel, welcome SAS community. Woo! We got people here today. Yay! And I even put on some lip gloss so that my face doesn't look like all one color, totally. I was watching some old videos and it was like, yeesh, maybe I need to change that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this looks on replay. Thinking I need to get the lighting situation a little different, a little brighter too. But I am 100% prepared today to talk about psilocybin and depression. I'm excited. I'm proud of myself, patting myself on the back. Before we get started, I just do want to I want to get my tongue going is what I want. Just want to say, Surviving Together, we are all about peer support. We are all about healing. We're here for all sexual assault and other trauma survivors and anybody who is just interested in learning more about these traumas and how to heal from them. Today, we're really just dealing with, mental illness, depression, and psilocybin, a up-and-coming treatment, potential treatment for the condition. So whether you've had a trauma or not, this could definitely apply to you. Let's see who is all here and go over any preliminaries first. Carry on. Welcome, Janet. So glad you're here. Shannon, good to see you. Crystal, I did receive your email and I'm glad you're okay right now. So we will arrange a time to talk. Donna, so good to see you. Mark, you're here as well. Yay. Yeah, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Check your subscription status. I have had some that normal kind of 3 gone, 3 back, 3 gone type of thing. So just check your notification status as well. And if you're subscribed, check your subscription status. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Because guys, guess what? I'm amazed. We had 191 subscribers as of the other day. YouTube's done their little back and forth thing. But we have over 1,200 watch hours now. I am blown away, absolutely blown away. We're going to hit the 4,000 watch hours, no problem. Our next goal will just be, getting that 1,000 subscriber, level. So it's, everything's just going well, moving right along. Goosebump. Very nice to see you. I don't think I've seen you before. Yeah, absolutely. Listen while driving. Please, no texting and driving. But we will definitely be here for probably a good couple hours, which is our norm anyway, right? Todd, I am so glad to see you. Glad you are here as well. You've got 101 subscribers, Todd. That is awesome. That is so what? Oh, I'm so happy. That's great. Yeah, the watch hours, it's tougher with the watch hours, and we do lives, right? That's really pretty much what I do. And these just go for so long. So what it's telling me is that the other people who aren't in the chat and the people who are watching on replay, they're actually watching it, the whole thing, or they're listening to the whole thing. They're not just watching for 10 minutes. You know, the analytics will tell you, oh, people watch on average for listen at half an hour, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But at those numbers, at over 1,200 watch hours, that's telling me people are watching the entire thing or the majority of it on average, which is awesome. It tells me that you guys really like the content and you like how it's being presented. So that gives me great drive to, keep going forward and keep things, as is. Um, if there's anything that I needed to change, anything you think that could make this better, please let me know. Either email me, survivingtogethersass@gmail.com. It's in the description of the video below, as well as some videos that I think might be helpful for you if you want to watch them on the subject of psilocybin treatment. And there's also some research papers, some clinical studies that were done that I've linked there below as well. And I've got more, but those were some of the more recent ones on topic. So. All right. Anybody sneak in while I was chatting right here? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, good. Well, preliminaries. I'm doing okay. Yay! My ex is doing okay. So is his wife. They're it's going to be a long haul mentally for them. With after any type of significant trauma. Oh, you're not late, Deaudrey. I just got started. I haven't even started fully talking about the topic yet, so you're not late. Breezy girl, good to see you. Question. Most of you guys have been with me a while now. If somebody had a significant trauma, whether it was sexual in nature or not, when they first started talking to you and telling you how overwhelmed they were, how distraught they were, how much they cry, just everything that goes along with being a day or two out of having a major trauma happen to you, what would you say? Do you have any idea? After all the things that we've talked about in relation to trauma, think about your own trauma, what would you have wanted to have been told to you? What shows the most support to you? It's a question that I broach because, the biggest part of what I want to do on this channel is education. Education for the future of these types of traumas of neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, of these things not happening. And people being able to recognize it if it is happening. Hand in hand with that also is being a safe space for you guys and being a place for healing as well. But in that education bubble, I want you guys to also be learning about what if this happened in your life? What if somebody came to you? What would you do? What would you say? Do you know? If not, this is the perfect time to kind of get your feet wet and understand a little bit more. I noticed looking back at some of my videos, I do not put up comments a whole lot. I try to talk about them. Um, I don't know if you guys like that or not, or if you'd like your comments put up on the screen more. Let me know how you feel about that. I can do either. I can do either. But I'm going to do a few here. Oh, that didn't just work out the way I wanted it to. See, Shannon says, I'm not sure there was anything anyone could have said to you. You were numb. Fair point. Fair point. And Crystal says, someone being there to listen or just sit with you, even if it's silence. Absolutely. Jod, your comments up on the screen are better for replay. Yeah, I've been noticing that. I was looking on replay and I'm like, when I comment on that, I need to explain because people just listening won't understand what I'm saying either. So it's like the visual for people on replay, but also anybody who's just listening, like our friend Goosebump, who's driving, I need to understand what I'm talking about. So I'm trying to get better at that. Crystal, wonderful answer. And whoever said validation is a good start for sure, Mock, that was you. Absolutely. The best things that we can do is just be there for them. Beyond that, in speaking to you, even if you're numb, validation is critical. Validating your feelings however you are feeling that way, that moment. Shannon, you were numb? That's totally fine. Totally reasonable reaction. You may be numb for a while. You may be numb today, and you may be a teary, absolute mess for 3 days, and you may be back to numb for a week. Who knows? All of it is normal. Whatever reaction you're having and that you're going to be having is normal. Don't beat yourself up because you don't feel like you can handle this, 3 days after it occurred. Don't. Admit that this is bigger than you. And you're going to have to deal with it. And I encourage you to think about it that way, because if we think that it's not bigger than us, it leads us to believe that we can put it in that box and put it away. But what have we found when we do that? It leaks out. It affects our emotions. It affects our actions, whether we realize it or not. Some people think, oh, I successfully put that away until somebody's talked about it and then it brought it all back up. Guarantee you, if we looked at your behavior and we looked at things you thought, it was going to be influenced by what happened and the trauma that's come out of that. So admitting that it's bigger than you, it forces you to look at it and deal with it, at least in my perception. So when I had to do this recently, this week, listening, validating however they're feeling, noting that this is something bigger than they can just get a handle on, and encouraging them to journal. And the reason I say encouraging them to journal is not to start working through this. I encourage them to write, just to start getting some of the stuff that's in you out. Because what have we learned about trauma? The traumatic event, we internalize that trauma and it lives in our body. And it stays in our body until we've dealt with that and we've released it. We were one person feeling one way with a certain set of feelings before this trauma occurred. Afterwards, we're that person plus a whole lot of new stuff shoved inside of us. And if that doesn't have somewhere to go, it's going to come out as explosive anger, just irritability. Um, it can lead to those long crying jags that are just hours and hours and days on end, where you cry yourself into exhaustion and then basically start up again the moment you wake up. To start getting those feelings out, to start getting that extra emotion out, just write whatever you're feeling. Right now, I'm just incredibly sad, and I'm really angry at myself because I can't stop crying, and blah 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 blah, or just pumpkin blue stripes and fall. Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't have to. You don't have to make full sentences. You don't have to write across the page in nice, neat lines. Just start writing. Just start getting out whatever's in your head and whatever you feel. So that is the reason initially, especially like in that first week or two after the major traumatic event happens, to just start working through those initial feelings, because they're going to be so over the top. They're going to be so overwhelming. It's just recognize it for what it is. Because we do take away a little bit of its power when we recognize it as being quite a big thing. And we recognize that we're going to have to deal with it, that we recognize we don't have all the tools to deal with this. And this is something more than I know how to deal with at this moment. And it's okay. It's okay that you don't. No one expects you to. But that's when it becomes critical to reach out for help, reach out for support. And that support can be people being there for you. That support can take the form of finding sites like ours, finding the videos, watching those videos, understanding that there's other people in the same position as you are, people who have gotten to the other side of it. So all of that information is like, really, really critical. All right, that looks like something I want to Shannon, I'm not going to put the comment up, or Deirdre, I'm not going to put the comment up, but I do want to address this, and it looks like people are addressing it in the comments as well, and it sounds like in your head that you are not at fault for what happened. But you're saying deep down inside that girl who was wearing those clothes, who was, acting that way, had it coming. And that little girl doesn't know. Tell her. Have a conversation with her. Whether that's sitting there with your eyes closed, having the conversation in your head, whether that's in talking out loud and just envisioning her sitting in front of you, whether that's talking in a journal. Tell her. Explain to her why she's wrong. Tell her you understand how she feels. And it's perfectly logical that she feels that way. But explain to her why she's not at fault. And you may have to keep telling her for a little while before she believes it. I bet it took you a while before you really believed it too. As an adult, now knowing what society's expectations are and that they can be wrong. I encourage you very much. Shannon says she does meditations where she speaks to her inner child. Yeah, absolutely. Speaking to ourselves, speaking to who maybe we envision as our authentic self, or to that hurt child or adult, depending on what age you were at the time that your trauma came through or that you recognized your trauma. It's incredibly important that we bring them up to speed, because if we don't, then we are going to be always having this kind of war within us between what our head says and what our heart says, your emotions versus your logic. And that can be really difficult, and that affects us as we maneuver throughout our daily life. Those emotions are still going to be getting jumbled and getting brought up when they don't need to be. So highly encourage you to do that. Crazy Girl says, why is looking in the mirror and telling yourself you're loved, strong, beautiful, etc. so difficult? Because, is that the easy answer? Because most of us have been trained or have been told so many times that we aren't those things, whether we were told explicitly or whether the actions that were done to us or around us told us that. And especially if it's as a child, even if that stopped as an adult, you hold on to all of that. Just like we were talking with DeAudrey. That inner person, that hurt person inside, let me just say it that way, that hurt person inside, if it's your inner child or if it's the adult who got hurt, the hurt person inside still feels all that pain, and they still feel like they're not all of those things because of what's been told to them. Again, then it's so critical that you talk to them and you tell them, listen, I know mom and dad were highly critical of us. I know that they weren't there like we would have liked them to be. I know that we really feel like we're not beautiful because those school bullies told us so many times that we weren't. But I'm here to tell you, in this day and age, looking back, none of that stuff was true. It's not who you are. It's not how you are. These are the things that are true. So you have to shine a light upon those truths for that person, because otherwise they're just going to be stuck in what they know. Yeah, Crystal, you're right. And I think a lot of abuse victims have difficulty looking in the mirror, whether it's because of just physically how they look or how you perceive that you look through the lens of you're not good enough, you'll never be, all those negative things that may have been told to you as you were growing up. That's how we see ourselves. We see ourselves through that lens. Our job as an adult is to deconstruct it, take all those layers back, figuring out what's real and what's not, and why were those things said? What context was it said in? And really just being able to then understand the abuse. We're not saying it's right, but having an understanding of what happened allows us to deal, I think, more effectively with the emotions that went along with it. Because then we're going to understand, well, this is why I reacted that way, because this is what their intention was. This is what they were saying that. This is what they were doing. And sometimes we may not know. I mean, that's possible too. Some people are just evil. But part of growing and healing from our trauma is letting go of that guilt of that shame, of that embarrassment, because it's not ours to hold on to. It was never ours to have reflected on us. It's what other people did, or what society did, what the traumatic event, the trauma from that, what that made you feel. But that was never truth. So I encourage you guys, maybe tonight before bed, or if you have a quiet time, later on this afternoon or this weekend, set aside a little time. Talk to your hurt inner person. Again, whether that's through writing, whether it's through talking out loud, whether it's through, meditation, just talking with your eyes closed, doing it as you're laying in bed. Talk to them. Find out what really hurts. What can you tell them about those hurts? How do you need to explain to them that they don't need to hold on to those and that they weren't true? They aren't true. I think you might find yourself being a little easier on your healing journey when you're aligned, even if you haven't totally convinced your inner child, that they're wrong in terms of how they're viewing things, or that they don't need to hold on to that anymore. At least when you talk to them, you say, this is where I'm going, and these are my goals. And, I need you to be on board with it. I need you to be in the same place that I am. Let me know how it goes. I really want that to be homework for each of you guys. And it doesn't have to end in some, huge breakthrough at all. But just start the conversation. Particularly if you've never done this before, just start the conversation. Can you identify all those things that you still feel inside? Maybe your head knows, isn't real, that you don't need to feel. What are all those hurts and those untruths that you hold on to deep down? What needs to change? So email me or leave a comment after you've done this. How did it go? How do you feel? Something you think you want to continue doing? I'd be really interested for you guys to see, how that went. Bye, Todd. I'm a little late on that one, but hope all is well. Yeah, Bracy, understanding what gets us overwhelmed, I think, is really critical for dealing with that feeling. When I feel overwhelmed, I freeze, right? I freeze and I do nothing, because the thought of even doing something then becomes overwhelming, because the whole thing has become overwhelming. And it doesn't even matter if it's one task, but if it's a big task that has lots of steps, I could do the same thing, So when we understand why we're overwhelmed, and if you can list those things down as to, what do I have to do? What is overwhelming about this? What do I think I can handle? And break it down into those pieces. It's like when we were talking about decluttering, You're not going to get out of it all at once. You're not going to declutter all at once. And you may want to deal with X, Y, and Z, and it may be you're only going to deal with half a shelf instead of the whole bookcase getting put back together. We do what we can in the pieces that we can. But understanding is so critical to being able to move forward at all, because we have to be able to pinpoint it. Okay, still getting better at this. Audrey, you like the one day at a time saying? Yeah, one day at a time, this too shall pass, any of those types of phrases. If it helps you get by hour to hour, day to day, remind yourself that this will change, whatever works. Definitely employ any of those tools or affirmations if those happen to work for you as well. I know that if I do some affirmations first thing in the morning, and I mean like when I wake up, before my feet even hit the floor, it will immediately put me in a better mindset for the day. I may not believe those things that I'm reading. Like I may not internally just 100% believe them all, but you can't say nice things and have a frowny face on at the same time. It's kind of, it's generally harder. So I try and do anything that will at least set me up for the day right. And having some affirmations for me right on my nightstand is key. Some people reach for their journal right away, and anything that they can think of from their dreams or anything that they can think of that's going on with their day, they start getting it out then. I have a short list because I know some people, there's huge, affirmation list. I just have a short list. It's like five things that I can remind myself of, and that hopefully frame my outlook for the day into be a better headspace, a positive headspace. Crazy, sometimes we do need a good cry. It's very cleansing. You get out a lot of emotion that way. And sometimes that's what you need in order to be able to get at the trauma that's there. Is you got to get some of that emotion out so then that you can peel apart that trauma or even get access to that trauma. So give yourself grace if you need a cry. Give yourself grace when you don't deal with things well. I know that's hard, and it's difficult for me because I feel at times I'm saying to myself, I'm giving myself grace like too many times. So it's I'm just giving myself a pass all the time. That's not what it's for, though. It's for in that moment, as you're going through this, give yourself the space and give yourself the permission to have that feeling, to explore it, and then be able to let it go and pass out and pass through you. But our feelings are valid, no matter what they are. So recognizing that and giving yourself the grace to feel it and cry about it if you need to, be angry about it if you need to, punch that pillow if you need to, whatever, to get you through dealing with that. It's totally fine. So yeah, definitely give yourself some grace. We all have those heavy days, Brazy. Definitely understand. Oh, Crystal, that was wonderful. You asked friends to tell you things that they saw in you, and you put that on the bathroom mirror. It's hard to say them, but at least my mind saw them. Absolutely. And what's even more so, because you got those from external, from somebody you know, it's not just like a list from a book or whatever. It gives you something even more tangible to hold on to, going, I'm not just saying this, somebody else believes this. So maybe even though I can't believe this in myself right now, or I don't have 100% acceptance of that, I know somebody else does. So it must be there. I'm just not recognizing it. I'm not giving it its full worth yet. But it's there because somebody else recognizes it. So, very key. And I think that's really important when you look at those, to keep that in mind. And I hope you do, Crystal. I hope you do. All right. Why don't we get into today's actual topic now? We are going to be talking about psilocybin treatment and depression. And we're talking about depression only here, because I did a very specific dive into it as to how its effects affect depression, or can affect depression. There's lots of other areas that they're looking at this treatment, psilocybin treatment for, such as different types of addiction, PTSD, OCD, so it's obsessive compulsive disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder. But we're just going to be focusing on depression, specifically major depressive disorder. And what that means is you've been fairly resistant or fully resistant to standard treatments. They have not been very effective with you. This is where I am. I'm on antidepressants. I'm on my way off of antidepressants, but they haven't really worked all that great. And I think I haven't been anywhere different in the last probably 10, 15 years, to be honest. I just don't know how I don't know if I'm gonna feel the same as I had them before, when I get off of them. Or am I gonna be in a better place now? I'm not sure. I do want to be fully off of them before I try this treatment. I'm all things being equal, I'm getting pretty committed to this treatment. But also, because of the things that I was reading, definitely into it with somebody who's trained. It doesn't need to be a doctor, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but they need to be trained in the treatment. You'd like them to be a doctor just in case anything weird happens, but at the dosages they're talking about, there shouldn't be any issues with like a bad trip that would affect your heart or something like that, that you would need like a doctor's services for. If they, couldn't haul you off to the emergency room right away, and still effectuate a treatment. Janet, yeah, the new medical research, particularly into psychedelics, is really fascinating. And there are a ton of videos out there on psychedelics in general, because they're doing research with MDMA as well, or what used to be called ecstasy, and derivatives of other psychedelics, different pieces, chemicals that are a part of that, but those synthesized because they're separating that piece out. But it's not just microdosing, I found out. And actually, microdosing is not the most effective for the condition that we're talking about, the major depressive disorder, at least according to the clinical studies that have been done. Now, why do I say that? Well, a couple of things. First off, Just have to remind everybody, it is still illegal in most places to possess psilocybin, what is the active ingredient in magic mushrooms. Some places have decriminalized it, Oregon, state of Oregon being one. There's been cities, pockets around the country who have decriminalized it. But on the whole, and federally, it is still illegal. So I say that to cover my behind, and as well as making sure that all of you guys are aware as well. I don't think anybody's not, and I don't know how it is in, Mark, what's it like in Germany? Are mushrooms illegal? I think if you go to Holland, they're not, or maybe that's just Amsterdam. So anybody who's from a different country, Canada, I know you're the same as us, but hey, Goosebump, glad you're home. Yeah, interesting. You did around ketamine assisted therapy a couple years ago. How did it work? Shannon, so far as I know, Oregon is the only state that has legalized it as an entire state. There's other cities that have done it, but they're the first one was as a state. So that means you can go in and they've got, people all around who are trained in doing the treatment. You just need to make sure how they're trained. There's good people trained and bad people trained, people just trying to make a buck. Same with the ketamine, when you did your research with that, you want to do the same type of research in terms of having somebody assisting you with psilocybin treatment as well. I'm glad you found the ketamine helpful, and that's legal in Minnesota. Interesting. Yeah, I do not know where around the country the ketamine assisted treatment is legal and it's not. I do not. I do not know. I'm not all that familiar with Tommy's story. For those of you who don't know, we're talking about Tommy Scoville from the Lifeboat, who apparently had some ketamine therapy. Shannon had ketamine in Florida, so I'm assuming that means it's legal in Florida. I think if you probably did a quick Google search, I think that's going to be majority of states, I think. And then the mushrooms is kind of creeping like the ketamine did. Same type of thing. Different cities are doing it. I think mushrooms are going to be on the November ballot for Michigan for legalizing as a state. Don't know that it will make it, but I think that was the goal. So we'll see. In Germany, it's illegal as well. You barely legalized medical cannabis. To be honest, most people just go to the Netherlands. I mean, things are so close. Oh, Tommy does not ketamine. He does psilocybin treatment 2 to 3 times a year. Yeah, it's interesting. The one thing that I don't have a whole lot of information about is that how often you would need to do this treatment, how often you might need to follow up on this. So 2 to 3 times a year sounds very reasonable to me based on the research that I have done. The goal is that the effects will last a lifetime, but we don't know how to do that yet necessarily. It's just kind of the positive effects and how long they last. We're in very new areas with this. So it seems that they're technically legal in Ireland, but there's a legal loophole that means they are available. Technically illegal in Ireland, but there's a legal loophole. South Africa drug laws were seen as suggestions. That kills me. That's that's hilarious. Sorry about that, buddy. Okay, well, let's dive into it then, because I have a lot of information, and you'll see on my scribbles. This is how I do my notes. It's makes sense probably to no one else but me. So, what can we say about psilocybin? Well, it is very similar to serotonin, chemically speaking. And because of that, it is actually, it attaches itself to the serotonin 2A receptor, or what is the 5-HT2A receptor. The 5-HT stands for the serotonin piece of it. And there are tons of serotonin receptors, tons of different places in the brain where there's serotonin receptors. Now, you also make serotonin in your gut, but that's a separate thing that we're talking about from the serotonin that's made in your brain. They work together, but it's not the same thing. Our brains, the serotonin in our brains they have hundreds of different functions. But the thing with psilocybin is they only attach to the serotonin 2A receptor. And what happens is psilocybin, when it hits your gut and it's broken down, it breaks down into psilocin. And that is the active ingredient that's actually doing stuff. Okay. So it has to break down into that psilocin. That psilocin will then attach itself, once it gets up to the brain, to the serotonin 2A receptor. And so that's the reason that when you ask most people what a mushroom trip is like, they're going to give you basically the same thing. Some people have good trips, some people have bad trips, but in general, the journey is going to be fairly similar. The fact that they have visual hallucinations, very common. It's one of the major things that is going to be affected. Your perception and your senses are the two biggest things that the attaching to that serotonin 2A is going to effectuate. So how you see the world and your senses. And I want to get this right, so let me so does the paradimal, I'm not saying that quite right, I don't think, neurons in our brains, that in particular, that these serotonin 2A receptors are on, that the psilocin will attach to. And what it is if you've ever seen a neuron, it's got these arms, right? These arms that are hanging out, and then those arms have these little tips coming out of them as well. So this is called the arms, they're called dendrites. And then these little things, that's where they found that most of the receptors are at, and where then the changes are happening. The 2A receptors are controlled by the neocortex, or their expression is within the neocortex, I should say, which includes, in the neocortex are areas such as the prefrontal cortex, areas that are responsible for understanding the context of what a situation is in, understanding thoughts and appropriate behavior in different social situations. So this is why when you've learned, you know that you're going to be one way with your friends, but yet when you go to work, you're going to be acting and speaking a different way because that's what's appropriate in that situation. So it's kind of just an example as to the types of things that we're talking about. What they have found in general, and this is a broad swath of the scientific explanation. I did put a few videos in the link, which speaks more specifically in terms of the science if you want to know more about it. And there's tons of other videos out there as well. But the psilocin increases communication across the brain between and broadens the flow of the brain of information in the brain. So areas that don't normally talk to each other can talk to each other. So your vision and sight, or sight, your vision and your hearing. The two things that normally aren't talking to each other per se, but can connect, can talk to each other, and you can have mixed feelings. This is how you can have the hallucinations. You can and be seeing sounds. I guess sight and sound would probably be even a better thing of two things that don't normally go together, right? Seeing sounds. That's something that you can do. Janet, if you are taking a magic mushroom, okay, so if you're ingesting it, then it has to go through the gut. They have synthesized this, and the psilocybin that they synthesized is psilocin, basically, and they inject that. So no, it doesn't have to go through the gut, but it depends on what you're doing. If you're taking a magic mushroom and you're getting it from that, then yes, it has to be ingested and broken down because the psilocybin will break down into the psilocin. But with the advent of making the synthetics now, and right, and Shannon controlling dosing, this is one of the areas where having the synthetics out there and having legalization and standardization across the board is going to help with being able to figure out what do I take and how much of it do I take. Because normally the rule of thumb is that there is the concentration of psilocybin in a mushroom is about 1%. So that means if you have 1 gram of mushrooms, 100 milligrams, you have 10% or 10 milligrams of psilocybin. Okay. Microdosing is anywhere between 1 and 3. They've done studies with about 10 milligrams. They've done studies with 25 to 30, and they've done studies with 50, or maybe even a little bit more. And those are generally the single dose studies. I'm going to skip around here a little bit because of the way that I wrote this, because I think it'll help to talk about some of this stuff before I talk about the actual treatment and how it goes. And so I'll speak more about dosing when I speak about that. I do want to say that what you are getting out of this, the treatment, what the treatment is doing is effectuating the way that you can see the world and relate to the world and do that differently than you did before your journey, before your trip. And these are effects which continue long after you are no longer under the influence of the psilocybin. And so that's where the goal is for those changes to take place and to just take off. Dr. Andrew Huberman, which if you've never listened to him, I think he's wonderful. He gives such great explanations of things that are normally off limits to the layperson because it's neuroscience. But he has a way of explaining it so well. I think that really brings it down to all of our levels. He's got a 2-hour video where he talks about this that I watched several times. I did include that in the link below. He's got a lot of papers that he brings up and talks about in that. And I've linked some of those below just because they are interesting papers in and of themselves. So if you want to see some of the studies, some of the work that's been done in this area. He said, think about the rewiring. Yes, we want to try and rewire the brain with this, but we want adaptive rewiring. We don't want to rewire it in a way that would be maladaptive, right? That would be a negative outcome. We need it to be positive and to have a positive outcome. So what can we do with that? Well, we need to take what we're given right after when we're off the off the psilocybin, when we're no longer under the influence, and the feelings that we have and the way that we look at the world, and we need to run with that. If you just take it and then just go back to your life as is and aren't trying to utilize what you did see or what you did feel and incorporate that into your daily life in a positive way, you're not going to get as much of effect as somebody else would, because you do need to work with it. It's not it's not an all encompassing treatment. You take it and everything's in your depression's gone. That's not what it is. Think about depression as, we all know what depression is. A lot of us have it. Think about it in terms of being a very habitual way of thinking. Because think about it. When we're in a depressive state, when we're suffering from this, every situation we look at, there's going to be a negative outcome. Because it's how we're looking at it. It's how we're analyzing it. It's how we're feeling about it. There's no positives to it. There's no good feeling. There isn't that emotion attached to things. So everything you look at, we're going to analyze the same. We're going to view our life through the same lens. And it's just, The psilocybin allows you to do, it allows your brain to see things in different ways. Literally seeing things in different ways with the visual hallucinations, but also opening up feelings and thoughts and allowing information to connect in different ways, new ideas, new ways of thinking that you haven't thought of before. And being able to see a situation, being able to see your own life, being able to see yourself in a different light. And so it's all these lessons that we feel and that we can take from this journey and applying it to our daily life. And it's still work. And there may be emotions that we don't know how to handle, or things that we don't know how to weave back into our daily lives, something that we felt or something that we thought. And that is why it's critical that we have somebody who is trained in this treatment. hopefully they're a therapist. That would be my ideal. There is going to be work that needs to be done integrating this into your life and being able to figure out how to get the most benefit out of it. So keeping on with that, I think, is going to be incredibly important to keep in mind. It's not just a one treatment and you're done and everything's fixed. They say that those who let me say it this way. So when you're the psilocybin, it expands your functional connectivity of the brain. So just what I was talking about. So all these different areas, information that normally maybe isn't thought of in terms of with a certain feeling or a certain way, all this stuff is allowed to communicate with each other much more freely when you're on this journey. The people who seem to benefit the most, or what they term the responders to the treatment, are people who experience a sense of unity or connectivity to their environment, to the greater world, that if that's the environment they're sitting in, or their environment in their mind's eye as they're going through the journey. People who felt the journey was spiritual in nature. There was some sort of mystical, spiritual aspect to it, out of body, other than me, something there. They call this oceanic boundlessness, the official term of it, which I thought was interesting. The people who also have insights about their self and their lives, and those who felt very blissful at some point during the journey. So having all those types of reactions, those are what they consider people who respond to it. So if you have all of those and you felt all of them strongly, then that's a very good indication that this treatment is going to work very well for you. Da-da-da-da-da. And I talked about that. And I talked about that. Okay, so let's talk about the treatment itself and what an ideal treatment looks like. Because I was kind of surprised by what came out of it. You're right. Neuroscience is very actively studying the effects of former and current illicit substances on the brain. Your daughter is studying the effects of THC on neurodevelopment. Interesting. I'm going to bet that they find it is a hindrance. But again, that may depend on strain. Obviously, the strain that you're doing, the concentration of THC, how often you're doing it, all those factors, right? But I'm guessing on whole, it's not going to be a positive effect for just going and smoking, not therapeutic doses. No, I'm not talking about that. I have no idea of ketamine, guys. I cannot speak to ketamine, so you can have your conversation about that. I'm not going to weigh in on it. So, best treatment practices. Well, for one, close your eyes. Have an eye mask. Make sure you close your eyes. Make sure you have somebody who's there with you. Make sure you close your eyes. The reason that they say that you're going to have your best journey with your eyes closed is because when your eyes are open, your cognitive function is going. And so you're also processing outside stimuli, outside visualization things. you want to limit as much of the outside world as possible. So you don't want to be looking at everything around you and trying to process that and incorporate it into this internal journey that you're trying to have. Okay. So laying down, relaxing, sitting in a really comfortable position, something, something of that nature, is your best way of going through this, starting off the treatment. Being over 25 years of age. So it's kind of, Mark, I just saw your thing. I don't think your age was necessarily why you didn't react to THC. Could be the concentration that you had it at, if it was low enough. Or it could be the fact you just don't react to it. You may not be very reactive to it. I know people who are extremely reactive to it, to the point that if they have any, they start throwing up. They get physically ill. And there's a name for it, but I forget what it is. So you can have that reaction, your reaction, or anything in between. But why 25? Well, 25 is on average the age that our brains have matured, that the wiring has stopped. Things are in place as they're going to be, unless you change them. And neuroplasticity is a thing, and it's perfectly changeable. But at least everything has a chance to grow, and grow as it's supposed to, without any interference. Now, if you have a serious mental condition or a disease that's affecting the brain, they may figure out that they want to try this on younger and younger people. But at this point, and all the studies have only been on adults, and adults over the age of 25. The other thing is they want to make sure that you don't have a history of psychosis. And what do we mean by psychosis? Well, bipolar diagnosis, schizophrenia, or what do they call it? Schizotypal. So it's all of your schizoaffective disorders. They had an argument in there that borderline personality disorder might be a prohibition to effective psilocybin treatment. It wasn't stated across the board. The psychosis was, because the danger is, if you already have the psychosis and you take the psilocybin, is that you're going to induce a psychotic episode. And of course, it's the last thing you want to do. And Dr. Huberman was arguing that not only you yourself not have psychotic type of mental disorder, but that any first relative of yours, so that's like immediate family, so brothers, sisters, mom and dad, if any of them have it, this might not be the treatment for you. So things to consider with that. Dosage. What is the best dosage? Well, we've heard a lot about microdosing, right? And that was what I had heard of. That was the therapeutic dose, right? Was microdosing, which is 1 to 3 milligrams spread over a series of weeks. They've actually found that the efficacy between doing microdosing or doing 10 milligrams is not very different. And neither of them are the most effective. What they found to be the most effective is a dose of about 25 to 30 milligrams given twice, about a week apart. And so this is where, when you're saying that somebody is having 2 to 3, doing it 2 to 3 times a year, it makes sense. and it would be very doable at that. Now, there could be a microdosing type of thing that this person's doing as well, but at least milligrams, so mg, not ml, Shannon, milligrams, 25 to 30 milligrams. And I was stunned by that, because everything I've always heard has been the microdosing, right? That's the therapeutic thing. But when you're looking at the newest papers, when you're looking at the studies that they're actually doing, that's not what's being most effective. So at least for me, this 25 to 30 milligrams is what I'd be aiming for, unless by the time I'm ready to do this, if I do some more research and it's changed and they found a different dosage. But no worries, Shannon. No worries about the typo. It was something critical. Otherwise, I would never have called it out for you. But I just wanted to make sure you understood that it was milligrams. I already talked about the concentration. The concentration, I mean, this is one thing that if we're not dealing with synthetics, is going to be a little difficult to gauge. I don't know how they gauge it, if the growers can figure it out, like they do the THC concentrations. I imagine they do, because you've got to be able to figure, science has a way of figuring that out, right? So I'm assuming the growers, people who would be giving this to the public, would be able to do that. See, naturally, the mushrooms have anywhere between about 0.5% of concentration for a gram to anywhere between 2 and 3%. So that's a really big difference. If you're taking something and expecting to have a 1%, and yet it's got a 2%, it's double what you were expecting to take. So knowing the concentration is going to be very, very critical, because you have to know how much to take. You need to know what is going to get me to that 25 to 30 milligrams of psilocybin. So you can't be just the mushrooms, you found in your backyard or on the walk that you had, I'm not even certain that the dispensaries that they have, I have not been to one yet personally, so I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they advertise things and how they have their concentrations labeled and things like that. So definitely a lot of things that would need to be taken into consideration if you're getting them for like a dispensary or something. Yes, Goosebump, a second dose of 25 to 30. So it is 25 to 30 each time. Your question, do they recommend preparatory and debrief sessions? Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is really key. You want somebody with you as well. Ideally, the same person who's doing your prep and your debrief is the person who's staying with you throughout the entire trip, because you want somebody who, A, is not on any mind-altering substance themselves to watch over you, and B, someone who's trained to know what is the journey supposed to look like? What does it look like from the outside looking at somebody having this journey? What are we not expecting? At what point do you need to interfere to help this person? And I'll speak about that in a minute. And what types of things might they need to process afterwards? What types of things do they need to look out for? These are all information that, I did not get all the ins and outs to it. I just wanted to give you kind of a basic idea. If people are really interested in this and they want to go through all the nuts and bolts, I can try and find some more information about exactly what would happen in the preparatory session, what they ask you about, what types of things they have you keep in mind afterwards, and that sort of thing. Okay, so we've got dosage, and then I do want to say that all the people in the studies had been asked to refrain from any SSRIs that they were taking or any sort of antidepressants that they were taking for a period of time before they did it. They did not mandate that they were totally weaned off their SSRIs. And I found that very interesting. So I'm not sure what their protocol was for after the study was done as to how or when or what dosage they got back on their SSRIs. So it's an interesting, just an interesting point that I'll just say. No one stayed with you, Shannon or Goosebump, for your ketamine treatment. Interesting. Interesting. Yes, people have different tolerances for all sorts of drugs, right? I mean, there's drugs my body just metabolizes where it passes my dad out. And I can take it and absolutely nothing happens to me because my body just metabolizes it into things that are inert and flushes it through its system. So again, that's why it's good to do this with somebody who is trained in this, because maybe after that second session, maybe 3 weeks after it, they're like, I think maybe you need another one. And maybe it's only at 10 milligrams. I have no idea. No idea. But I didn't get that involved into it to figure out or to know if they have even figured out after this initial treatment, do you get treated another 6 months down the road? At what point do you decide another treatment, another round of treatment is warranted? All questions that I have that I don't have the answers to. Oh yeah, you guys both had ketamine treatments, so Goosebumps, Shannon. That would be great for you guys to talk and compare notes. That'd be wonderful. All right, well, more about psilocybin treatment and best practices, at least as we know of them now. No food, for 4 to 6 hours before you ingest the psilocybin. And that is because of the issue that I said of if you're ingesting it, the psilocybin has to get broken down into psilocin. And if you eat, that's going to affect the acids levels in your stomach, and that's going to affect how that psilocybin is broken down. So want to have as even of a treatment as possible, and it's all treated at the same acidic level throughout the entire time that it's digested. Best just on an empty stomach. Now, if they're doing injections with you, that's a wholly different thing. And so if they're just injecting into your bloodstream psilocin, they may have totally different guidelines for you that way. I do not know. Okay, the setting and what they call the set are also very, very important. By set, they mean your mindset. What are you thinking? How are you feeling going into this? So it would really behoove you to maybe do something that is uplifting beforehand. Meditation, think good thoughts, you have a great conversation with your best friend, whatever, but be in a good space before this, because the better space that you are in, the better journey that you can have. They say that the people who have bad trips, they believe, had not been in the right headspace beforehand. And may have had some buildup of some emotions during their trip that they didn't know how to deal with. And that anxiety or the negative feeling then is what ended up taking over for that trip. Now, what can help with that? Well, one, your setting, knowing that you're in a calm, relaxed, quiet place with somebody who will keep you safe. That's the most important thing. They're going to keep you safe and they're going to help you on this journey. One of the things that I think should be brought up is breathing techniques, because there is this sameness to the journey in terms of time periods as to how the journey goes. There's an initial 30 to 45 minutes that your body's digesting and getting under the influence of the drug. Then there's going to be a period of time after that where you're actively under the influence, and it's going to peak at about hour 2, maybe hour 3, that emotional peak. And it's at that point in time that people anywhere along this, so 2 to 4 hours ish, people can have very heightened emotions, and their anxiety can get to them a lot. And mainly it's because of this feeling of what they call ego dissolution. You feel like you're losing yourself. Like if you let go, whatever letting go means, that you aren't going to be there anymore. You aren't going to exist. So speaking about that and saying it, because your breathing will become different and heavier, but having somebody there saying, okay, it looks like you're having, high anxiety right now. Is that true? How are you feeling? Checking in with you. If you're having problems, getting you on some breathing exercises, doing deep physical breathing, which is going to help knock that anxiety out. Encouraging you to, yes, just let go, totally go with the flow. You will come back into yourself. Even if you feel like you're out of yourself for a while, the ending, that 4 to 6 hours, you will come back into yourself. And this is also the period of time where they say the spiritualness, the mystical aspect of it, having that oceanic boundlessness, it's all going to happen during this more peak period of emotions. And that it's really critical that you allow yourself to feel that and to go through that, because the more you do, the better chances you have of this therapy working for you in a positive way, or you become considered a responder. So personally for me, having somebody sitting there watching me and being able to check in with me and going, hey, you're twitching and you're talking this, that, or the other, and knowing they're going to help me through this, that is a great peace of mind. And that may cut down on your anxiety that you feel because you understand what's going on. You might have to be reminded of it as you go through it. Goosebumps says your biggest takeaway from ketamine-assisted therapy was that there was always a you at the core, always, no matter how out of control you may felt. And I haven't been through this, so I can't say exactly what they mean by this, about losing yourself, losing your sense of self. And some people may not. But it's one of those things where it happens to enough people that you need to be aware of it. And if you feel like you are, even if you're not going to, but if you feel like you are, you've got anxiety because of that, that you need to know how to deal with that anxiety and ratchet it back down so that you can enjoy the experience and have it be the most positive experience that you can. Okay, so that is all the stuff that is like the basics, except for music. And I found this fascinating. They said music that changes throughout the journey and mimics or mirrors the stage of the journey that you're in can really help you along your journey and it be a very positive experience. A couple of things in regards to this. So they say something like classical music would be best for that initial 30 to 45 minutes when you're kind of just getting under the influence. Something with no words, instrumental music at that point in time. They said once you start transitioning into more of the active period, when you're actively under the influence, they said change the music to something louder, higher tempo, beats, so something like drums, very active drumming music, having it on a little louder, that higher tempo. And then when you go to the period of where you're coming down from it, so say after, hour 4 or so, then you would put on something softer, something melodic. I think of Evanescence music. It could even be like Gregorian chants, something along that line. And then at the very tail end, the last, little bit, 45 minutes or so, switching to nature sounds, something that is not man-made sound. So your babbling brook and your ocean and, all of that kind of stuff. Very interesting. Very interesting. And they found that because of this ability of the psilocin to increase communication between the different areas of your brain, that some people could actually control the music by moving their hand up or down. So their movement, their body movement made the volume increase or decrease, or the tempo increase or decrease, whatever they wanted. Or it was their breathing. If they breathed long, slow in, it was slow. If they breathed out really quickly, the music was really quick. And it's because you have all these different areas that are talking to each other that normally don't speak to each other. We know our motor skills and music that we're listening to don't go hand in hand. There's nothing I can do that's going to affect that music that's coming out of the box over there, right? But yet, in this journey, you potentially can. And again, that goes back to seeing colors or seeing music. Two senses that normally don't go together, that normally aren't talking to each other, but you can inside this sort of journey. And again, keeping all outside other than music. And that's why they said not putting in earphones to block out all the noise because of having the music. Now, if you had the music in earphones, that's one thing. To me, that would be ideal because then I wouldn't be focused on any noises that, people who were sitting with me or whatever were making. They just need to tap me on the shoulder if they needed to get my attention or something. Other than that, I could totally focus on this vision and experience that I'm having within my brain and that I'm seeing through, like seeing through my third eye. I found that fascinating with the music. One of the studies that they did trying to kind of determine how you are baseline versus how you are under the influence one of the incredible things that they found was that people afterwards who had major depressive disorder did seem to report that they were able to feel more joy listening to music than they had before. I don't know if you're in a depressive state, if you notice that you don't listen to music a whole lot, or you may listen to it, but it's just background noise. You know, I have a playlist called Feel Good. And I noticed that there are definite times where I can listen to that, but none of them are going to make me feel good. In fact, some of them are going to make me feel really bad because it's going to remind me of somebody or something. They said after doing this treatment and having the music along with it, the happy songs made them happy. And the sad songs didn't make them as depressed. So it's like it deadened that how far down you would go. Cushioned that, that you're not going down as far either. So when you translate lessons then that you may have learned from this journey to your daily life and to how you perceived things differently, maybe you put different emotions to different perceptions. Those are things that you're going to need to put together then for your daily life and to work with for it to work going forward. This is my understanding. Now, somebody, may say, nope, it's just you listen, you take it and you go through your thing and then you're just good afterwards. I don't know. Maybe that's the case for some people or a lot of people. I can only go by what my research has told me and has told me what the most effective way of handling the treatment is. And the most effective way is to still have somebody that you're talking to, a therapist, or even just, a friend, an outlet, to be able to work through your feelings and your thoughts and what's going on, because you want to be able to put them in practice in a positive manner. And the more you do that, that wiring is going to become more permanent. It's my understanding the rewiring will start on this journey, but it's not as if you've hardwired something different. Does that make sense to everybody? It's like you've soft wired it and you have to do it a few more times before that becomes concrete. Oh, that's wonderful. Max says, I stood in the ocean again yesterday and it was relatively few people because it was windy. And you were just in that giant sensory open air chamber and it really made me feel positively empty and present. That's wonderful. I tell you, the ocean does that for me like nothing else will. I can sit and just listen to the waves forever. And as peaceful as it can be listening to the waves, like, on Apple Music or whatever, it's just not the same. It's not that 3D feeling of being there and having, yes, that expanse of the ocean out in front of you. And Janet, your experience with mushrooms, may have had to do with the concentration. I guess things like the type of mushroom it is, because there's different varieties that do make psilocybin, and I don't have it written down, but there's one variety in particular that's used the most, I guess. So who knows what kind of variety you had. And the concentration can change from not only the type of mushroom it's had, but how old it is, how long, or how it had been kept, how long it's been harvested. I mean, there's all these other things that affect how you're going to feel once you take it. And then there's you. You know, there's you and your body and how it affects you. So you could take something, you could take more now that you're older, and it could have the exact same effect for you. And that may just be you, or it could be vastly different. There's probably no way of finding out like how much concentration was in what you had, but be very interesting. My cursor's not working. Hang on, guys. There we go. Mark, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. The elements, the sounds the elements make are certainly unique to them. And like I love in the winter, I love listening to the fire crack. And I actually had a crackling fire CD that I had in college. That was something I'd put on when I'd be studying for a test or something. I had that and Ocean Surf. And those are the two for me that were like the most. I assume for some people, maybe the howling wind or hearing wind whistle through different things could be melodic. Wind chimes. Oh, I love listening to wind chimes. So when it's windy out and you've got those going, big ones and small ones, all making different tones. Just wonderful. I gotta get out to the beach. It's the end of August and I have not been out, and I promised myself I'd get out this summer. Okay. I have a feeling my roommate and he's going to drag me out. Probably next weekend. We'll see. Yes, a good thunderstorm is awesome. Misha, hey. Thank you for stopping in and giving us your love. We love you too. And I am so glad that your grandbaby is there. Oh, you're going to visit. Okay. Well, have a wonderful visit. Have a safe drive and a wonderful time with that grandbaby. We were just at my mom's the other day, and she was looking at my son, and she said, the day you give birth to your child is one of the most monumental occasions that you'll ever had. She said, but the day your child gives birth to your grandchild is probably the only thing that could be second to that. And he is the only grandchild too, so there's a lot of love directed there at him. I love thunderstorms too. I really do. So does my son. We both have thunderstorms that we listen to at night, like to go to sleep or whatever. Love me a good thunderstorm. I like to be able to hear it though. And a lot of times I have to leave the windows open for that, and then I get rain inside my house because it seems to always be coming from the wrong direction. I'm just reading back up through your things, guys. Now, this is interesting what you and Shannon have been talking about, Goosebump, that your therapist recommended after ketamine treatment not to speak with anyone but her for 2 weeks so as to minimize potential contamination of the experience. Interesting. I have no idea if they recommend something similar for psilocybin treatment. Very interesting. Yeah, if I thought I could get Tommy on to speak about his experience in doing it, I would welcome the opportunity. He has a traumatic brain injury, however, so that is going to alter how it works with him versus how it would work with one of us who does not have any sort of injury to our brain, any disease or disorder that is directly affecting our brain beyond mental illness. So I don't know. I just don't know how much we'd be able to say, well, that would happen to me, based on his experience at all. But definitely being interesting. Oh yeah, watching lightning, that's love. That's love too. Well, I'll see if I'll send a note and see if I can get him interested. Um, if you happen to speak to him, Shannon, you're more than welcome to invite him on behalf of me. I don't know that you will, but if anybody does happen to speak to him, you can mention that I'm looking to get in touch with him to be on. Love to have Spanx on too. Okay, I'm looking at my notes here, and that is about all I had for you. I spoke about the age difference, or the age with it, not be under 25. They have had older people in this, but they have not done a concentration of like young people versus old people in studies. So we don't know, say, how an older group, 50 to 70, is going to metabolize this versus how a younger group would. And we're talking about just the normal healthy individuals. So it's possible that there's could be a difference there as to how you respond to the treatment based upon where your age falls and how you metabolize the psilocybin. Let's see. I talked about the psychosis because that's another factor in if this would work for you, and basically it really may not, and they don't want to. You really don't want to risk it. The severity of your depression can also affect how well the treatment's going to work for you. And, I would imagine this might be where microdosing versus doing the 25 to 30 milligram dose might differ as well. Because if you have mild depression, but you don't want to take SSRIs, let's put it as somebody who's never taken it. And one, because they're not convinced SSRIs or lack of serotonin is really the reason you get depression, right? They don't have 100% handle on it yet, which is amazing. It's just kind of this amorphous condition that does develop, and they know that in absence of certain things, it can develop more likely to develop than others, but they don't have a really good idea of how it comes about. And so therefore, what exactly can you pinpoint one thing then to say, well, then this will work to take it away? Haven't gotten there yet. But if you've got, so for somebody like me, treatment resistant, major depressive disorder, I'm going with the 25 to 30 milligrams. Other mental conditions that you have, along with depression, can affect how well you're going to respond to the psilocybin treatment, or how much it can effectuate change in your depression. And again, I think this is where it really behooves you to have somebody who is experienced in the treatment and who's also just experienced in therapy in general to help you work through any of that and to get the most out of the experience that you possibly can, given what you're working with. Let's see. Yeah, I think I talked about all of those. So. Right. Yeah, so borderline personality, people with narcissistic personality disorder, the reason that they're suggesting that you might want to not put yourself towards this treatment is they just don't know how you're going to react to the psychedelics. People with those conditions generally have more negative reactions to it. And so it's cautioned, very heavily cautioned, if you have those types of personality disorders, that you might want to try something else, that this might not be the thing for you. And now it's not to say that it might not work. You know, I would say that if you fall into one of those buckets, then you definitely want to do more research on it and see exactly why they think you have a more negative experience with those personality disorders. Is there anything you can do to compensate for that? You know, don't have no idea if there is. We're really in the infancy of a lot of these studies. We're figuring out that it's being effective for certain disorders, but there's still so much that has to be answered. You know, Deidre, I'm glad you said that. You said 2 of your friends are getting ketamine treatment and it's helping, but it's not a magic bullet. And, you know, definitely the point I'm trying to get across with the psilocybin is that it can help, and it's proven to help. And it's proven to help immensely more than any of the other treatments that are out there right now. Any of the drugs that they manufacture, just having talk therapy or soma-based therapy, it's so far beyond in terms of the magnitude of being able to help that, you know, they're just not quantifying it. But they said the better your experience, the better outcome you'll have with how effective, how long it'll last, and how effective it will be in combating your disorder, your depression. So what you want to have come out of this is to say, that is the single greatest experience, most profound experience of my life. Literally, this is what the researcher said. You want to be able to come out of it saying that. And so that's why they put down all these, they've been figuring out all these things as to what works the best, for what works for having the best experience. So closing your eyes, having a safe place, having somebody there along with you to help guide your journey and keep you safe. Music along with your journey to reflect the different stages of your journey. Being the right age, being in the right mindset when you go into it, and not having some contraindicators. So far, that's what they've got. I'm just reading over your comments real. And since the guys got off on thunderstorms for a long time, I think my mom said God was bowling. I think they said that's what thunder was. God was bowling, but I'm not 100% I don't remember 100%. I wonder if she remembers. Audrey, you have a feeling that the treatment might not go very well with your anxiety. It's possible. And this is one of the other conditions that, along with the depression, that can affect how well it works. My understanding, though, is that if you can go into this with the right mindset, if you can go into this having tools that decrease your anxiety, like these breathing exercises, right? Having things that are on your fingertips that you know that you can do and you can go to when your anxiety is getting high to be able to reduce it. So the more you can keep your anxiety down, the easier it's going to be for you, the better journey you're going to be going through. And I think mentally, keeping your anxiety down, it will help a lot knowing that you've got tools at the ready. And you've got somebody there who can help recognize when you might be getting stressed out or when you might be gearing up high anxiety, and to help you and to remind you to do those exercises. Come on, breathe, or whatever you've chosen. Because I don't know that as you're in there and your anxiety is getting higher and higher, you're going to be able to rationally think, oh, I need to do my breathing exercises now, right? So that's why having somebody there watching you is a good thing. But I would certainly do more research in regards to having depression and anxiety and doing psilocybin treatment. There are articles out there. I think there's even some YouTube videos that are out there that talk about it. I can't say for certain if there's anything that they've come down on one side or the other about it. So the information I've given you thus far is what I know. Mark, I don't know if you're talking to somebody. Are you talking to Goosebump with your level of calmness comment? I'm feeling like that might be. But if it's me, let me know. But otherwise, guys, that be all I got for you. Oh, to Crystal. Okay, got it. Just making sure it wasn't anything I needed to be, jumping in the middle of. So that is all I have, guys. If you want to do more of this, if you'd like to do some dives into some of the other psychedelics or some of the other just alternative treatments to some mental conditions that are quite common as effects of trauma, certainly willing to go there. If you want to do a little bit more diving into psilocybin, we can do that too. There's more information that I could have about the practicalities of going through one of these journeys, going through one of the treatment sessions, about the person who's there, the person who's informed, what they need to be informed about, what they should tell you at the beginning, what they should be doing as you're going through it, and post. So that's another line of query that we could take with the same subject. But this is a good overview, kind of gives you an idea as to the science, as to why most people have very similar types of journeys. and an idea of where the research is going and where it's been, the things that they've kind of figured out thus far, and the big question areas that we still have, which are many. So you definitely don't want to go into this thinking, oh, I've got major depressive disorder, psilocybin, that's my answer. It can fix it. It's not like that. There is no magic pill that we know of. Mental illness is so tough to deal with. There is no magic pill that they found thus yet. Now, maybe if we found depression is caused by boom in the brain, and anxiety is caused by boom, and we know exactly what those two booms are, then we can give it to ourselves or fix the wiring or, whatever it is. Then we might be able to have more of a magic pill. However, if we don't change our internal dialogue, no matter what we're feeling, no matter what we went through on that journey, if we're not putting that into place, and as negative feelings crop up, as the ants come out, as situations arise, if we're not putting that different perspective into practice, if we're not stopping ourselves from going to that negative place, it's not going to be any different. You'll have had a nice trip. Maybe music's more enjoyable to you now, but all in all, your depression isn't going to change. Your life isn't going to change, I should say. And your depression won't really have been affected. The psilocybin is a way to get the neuroplasticity ball rolling. Once it's rolling, it's up to us to use all those pieces and all the tools and all the different ways we got to think about things. And, I'd want to go in with kind of like a list of what do I want to look at different? Is there a situation that I want to be able to handle different? I wonder if you had things in mind when you went into it, would you then be able to make a connection while you were in there because you had something on your mind as you went? I bet you would. I bet you would. So that'd be very, very interesting. Goosebump. Do you want me to give Goosebump your number? Shannon, do you want me to give Goosebump your number? If you do, text me or put it in the chat. And Goosebump, if you email me at survivingtogether, siss@gmail.com, if she wants that. Okay. Goosebump, if you want Shannon's number, feel free to email me and I will email the number to you. So that offer is open. So that's great. And this is how we network, and this is how we meet people, and this is how we have friends and learn from each other, and they're supportive of one another. And you guys just make my day. You do. Just every time I go through these, I'm so happy that we had so many people who showed up for this. And I know we've got more who are lurking and listening who aren't part of the chat, which is totally fine. You do want the number? Okay, yeah, just email me. Just email me, and I will certainly get that to you. Absolutely. Connection was 100% the best. And that goes to the psilocybin talk too. It's those connections that your brain is going to make, the different connections that it's going to make, the connections it's going to make for you to the larger world, all things that we don't normally feel, that's what it's going to help bring out. And that's what you need to be prepared for. I would certainly be journaling after the experience and writing down what you thought, what you felt, anything you remember from the journey that sticks out that you want to be able to remember, thoughts that you had, things of that nature. I could see how that would be really invaluable, especially if there was something that you thought of and then it kind of went by the wayside, but you read back through it a week or two later and you go, oh yeah, I remember that. And I could see how that would affect my daily life this way or that way, So, Crystal, you're wonderful and you're very welcome for this space. I will speak with you this weekend. Okay. Yet this weekend I will speak with you. So I will be in touch. I'm just not sure how that's going to go. My roommate is on his way home, I believe, because I ignored his phone call. So I think probably that's why he was calling. I get my car back. Yay. Not like I've needed it. All right, guys. Well, anything else, either email me or please leave a comment. Hit that like button if you haven't. Check your subscription status, even if you're subscribed. The algorithm loves the thumbs up, and it also loves comments. So even if you're just like, hi, this was great. You got to wait about a minute or so after the live ends for the comment section to appear, though. So if you think about it, that would be awesome. And actually, I guess the algorithm doesn't care if it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. It's just the amount of people who have put the effort into hitting one of the buttons that it's that it looks at in terms of should it push this out to more people. So I'm still on my path of getting more videos out. I did not this week, and it's still there. I had to do some more thinking about when I take this channel full time, because it will happen. I just don't know when. I had to do some more thinking about it and things that I had to have in place before I could do that. Some things I hadn't quite thought of before, that being very eager to bring this online as a full-time thing brought out some things that I thought, this is probably going to be best addressed beforehand, or at least having what my idea is going to be for dealing with it in place before I try to go full-time. So I've done a lot more thinking and planning and strategizing in regards to that. So I have gotten some channel work done in and amongst to doing a little more research on this subject as well. But Janet, you're so welcome. And I look forward to talking with you guys again. Wednesday, I have no clue as to what we're going to talk about yet, but I will probably decide something by Monday. So I'll make sure to get a thumbnail up. Even if it's one of my pathetic thumbnails. This is a beautiful thumbnail. This was made by Janet, guys. Carry on. She made this wonderful thumbnail for me because I kept making them and YouTube kept rejecting them. And I don't know why. I do not understand why one photograph can be X amount of bytes and another photograph that takes up the same amount of space has 10 times that, and so it won't work. Got very frustrated because I made two really cool thumbnails, I thought, and I couldn't use either one of them. So if somebody doesn't make it for me, we're probably back to trauma and the body. My total simple. You have a solid color background and some words, and this is about as creative as my brain gets sometimes, right? So yeah, YouTube can be very random sometimes. I was trying to make sure I had the right amount of pixels too, because you got to worry about that. And it's actually different if you're trying to post a thumbnail directly on YouTube than if you're trying to post it through StreamYard. I've recognize this. So if anybody of you do use StreamYard or are thinking about it, it's smaller. The space top to bottom is smaller than if you were to try and put it directly in YouTube. I have no idea why. That is why some of my thumbnails, the wording you can't quite see at the top, because you could see it in StreamYard, but when they transfer it and put it to the YouTube format, it's up too high. So bye, Geaudrey. Best of luck to you. Hi, Rick. How you doing? Oh, see, now, Rick, this is why I have got to get on with my roommate. As soon as he is willing, which is going to be a while because he wants to wait until after his business launches. I know I can't be like really funny here because of the topics that I talk about. It just doesn't lend itself to being funny, right? I know. Um, but we've got some great material to share with you guys. So I'm hoping that we can either make a separate channel or I might use Surviving the Cracks channel for it. That's a possibility too. And that way, whoever can be there will, whether it's Jen or whether it's my friend or whether it's somebody else that we collaborate with on a particular one. So, but congrats for hitting 555 videos, over 550 videos. That is amazing. We are at like 78, I think, with this one here. So a little over 75, which not so bad since beginning of February. So we're just 6 months out, which is great. Topics are important, but not funny. Yeah. That's why we just have to kind of have a day or game night or, something where we can just kind of let loose a little bit. Or our Saturday, our Saturday once a month, where I put together stupid news stories and memes. I think that went across fairly well with most people. So probably in 2 or 3 weeks. How long ago was that? Yeah, maybe another 2 or 3 weeks. We'll do that again. Or I'll do it on a separate day. I'll do it on like Sunday or something. Of course, we know you're proud, not bragging. You have a right to. You have a right to be proud. In case you didn't know, I announced that we had over 1,200 watch hours. I'm amazed, totally amazed, especially when it's on like 78 videos. You guys are incredible. So, but Rick, that is wonderful about how many videos you did, and I had this conversation actually with somebody just the other day about being conceited and bragging or being confident and just relaying facts of your achievements. There is a distinct difference between the two. There is nothing wrong with saying, I'm the best in the shop. You may be. Somebody's got to be, and somebody's going to be at the bottom. So why not be you? But if you're just speaking to your friends, you're not speaking to the other people in the shop, and you're speaking to your friends, or you're speaking to me and saying, I'm the best in the shop, and it's like, wow, that's fabulous. Congratulations. Absolutely, congratulations. And you know how it's presented too, as to whether or not it's meant as bragging. And I understand why you said that too, because it's so hard to tell sometimes with text, and that's so much. You're right, and we're your friends, so we know the difference. All right. Well, I am going to call my friend back and see where he is. He might even be almost here by now. No, he's probably still an hour out. We'll find out. But if you guys have any ideas, anything that's really pressing that you want to hear on Wednesday, please let me know since I don't have anything picked right now. Either email it to me or put in the comments. I do read all the comments. I get notifications of all the comments. And so if you ever say something in the comment or email me and you don't hear from me, it means I haven't gotten it. So either email me again or post a comment again or tell me in the live that you sent me something and I'll make sure to look for it. I know we had this case. Shannon said she sent me several emails and I never got them. So no idea, So I do not ignore anybody. So you guys just let me know if you've put something out there. So have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Enjoy the nice weather. At least it's been nice weather here where I am. It's been calm and warm in the day and cool at night, which I really love. So take care of yourselves. All right. Stay positive. If you need anything, reach out to somebody. Don't suffer alone because we survive together, never alone. Remember, you are worthy. You are valuable. You are a survivor. So you are strong. I usually say that in the other way, but oh well. Most importantly, you're loved just the way you are for who you are. Hugs and love, guys. Much hugs and love. And we'll see you on the next one.